Hudson County View live and uncut, and I'm your host, the reflection of perfection and your number one selection, John R. Heinis, here to talk the latest and greatest in Hudson County news. Obviously, we are just 13 days from this June 10th primary, so there is a heck of a lot going on, but we're going to try to keep you as informed as possible as we do every week. So first of all, though, away from the electoral stuff for a moment, there was this big lawsuit that came out from the U.S. Department of Justice, and they are suing the city of Jersey City, as well as Hoboken, Newark, and Patterson, and they are basically alleging that their sanctuary city executive orders are not constitutional, and so they're trying to get these executive orders rescinded. And of course, President Donald Trump and his administration have been adamant that they want to see deportations across the board for anyone that is not in the country legally. And of course, a lot of people have a lot to say about this. This comes just under 2 weeks after that whole crazy incident at the Lady Hall in Newark. You know, the mayor, Ross Baracco, is of course a Democratic candidate for governor, got arrested for trespassing. That ended up getting dropped in a short order. But then at the same time that the charges got dropped, U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver ended up getting charged with assault due to this confrontation with some ICE agents. So there's a lot going on there, but fortunately, we have someone who had a firsthand account of all of that going on today. So I'm going to be sitting with U.S. Representative Rob Menendez. Of course, he's our congressman, and we're going to do that very shortly. But first, talking about some of the electoral stuff, U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill's on the campaign trail. Of course, she's the leading Democratic candidate for governor, and she actually paid a stop to my neighborhood, the Jersey City Heights, on Saturday. That was right after she was right down the road in Hoboken, and that was an interesting situation because she responded to some of the things that we heard from Jersey City Mayor Fulop right here on this set last week. So I'm sure you guys are curious about that. She also submitted an editorial a couple days before that about why she's the governor to get the Gateway Tunnel over the hump, if you will. And we've also heard quite a bit from Mayor Fulop. And in one instance, over the holiday weekend, he was at a cannabis conference and he actually endorsed mushrooms for veterans as well as homegrown in New Jersey. So something that cannabis enthusiasts are probably going to be interested in. So we got all that and a whole lot more right after this word from our sponsors.
No one plans on heart disease, but everyone should have a plan for it. We help patients of all lifestyles and medical histories plan for healthy hearts. We offer convenient screenings without judgment, hundreds of preventive programs, and women's heart specialists. And we're the largest cardiac surgery program in New Jersey. Make plans for a healthy heart with RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Hudson County View live and uncut, John R. Heinis. So let's talk about this U.S. Department of Justice lawsuit. So again, filed in U.S. District Court in Newark. That was on Thursday, first reported by Bloomberg, but given that they don't cover Jersey much and they have a pretty heavy paywall system, a lot of people didn't start hearing about this till Friday afternoon. So with that, let me read you an excerpt. So it says, Newark, Jersey City, Patterson, and Hoboken are proud sanctuary cities. They have all adopted policies for the clear object of making it harder for the United States to enforce federal immigration law. These efforts to shield illegal aliens within the Garden State are unlawful, the lawsuit contends. Among much else, these cities, along with their elected officials, of course they're defendants, deny federal immigration agents access to illegal aliens in local custody, restrict local officers' ability to hand over illegal aliens to federal agents, and bar otherwise willing local officers from providing mission-critical information to federal immigration authorities. So we also heard from the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and she said recent events have proven that these New Jersey officials care more about political showmanship than the safety of their communities. Also of note, just to point out, the 4 mayors of those cities are also named in the suit. And she continues, as I have made clear, the Justice Department does not tolerate local officials in sanctuary cities obstructing immigration enforcement. There is more litigation to come. So this is not the first lawsuit of this kind in the country. You know, there's been quite a few others in several other states. So we heard from Mayor Fulop, of course, of Jersey City, and he's running for governor as a Democrat, as we well know. He wrote, Jersey City gets sued for being a sanctuary city. I guess MAGA ran out of conspiracy theories for the week. Here is the truth. Jersey City's policies protect families, reflect our values, and have led to record low crime rates. As governor, I won't be bullied. We'll fight this and win. And we also heard from Hoboken Mayor Ravi Bala, a candidate for state assembly in the 32nd Legislative District, of course, also as a Democrat. And he put out a very long statement, but I guess the bottom line was this. Hoboken is a community that prides itself on its vibrancy, its cultural diversity, and its inclusivity. We will continue to stand together as a community for what is fair and just. The city of Hoboken will vigorously work to defend our rights, have our day in court, defeat the Trump administration's lawlessness. To be clear, we will not back down. So, you know, that's basically where we are for now. As with most lawsuits, this is probably going to take years. I don't imagine that either side's going to bend on this too much, but we're going to keep you up to speed to the best of our ability. So then, closer to home here in the Jersey City Heights, as I mentioned at the top of the program, spoke with U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill. She actually came to Renato's Pizza Masters. I think they have great sandwiches, but the point being that's over on Central Avenue in the Heights. And, you know, she was on the campaign trail doing a meet and greet. So I think the most notable thing is she responded to some recent comments from Mayor Fulop. And two things that I asked her on that end were, one, he says he's the only candidate that could win in November. And two, you remember on this program last week, he said that she had asked, or the campaign at least, had asked two other candidates in the governor's race to drop out. So her responses to those were, I think he's put out a lot of things that aren't quite true, and I'd say both of those are an example. So I think I have the strongest track record of building up broad coalitions of people in elections, getting out hundreds of thousands of people. Mayor Fulop's never built a campaign like that. And I'd also say that I've never suggested that anybody shouldn't run. I think it's important for people to hear the voices and visions of others and really test that against my vision. I just think that mine's the most compelling. I think I have the most substantive plan to actually drive down cost and the best understanding of Washington so I can fight for people here in New Jersey. So with that, folks, we got plenty more. But when we come back, we'll be sitting down with U.S. Representative Rob Menendez. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Consumer Carpets, 3408 Kennedy Boulevard in the Jersey City Heights, your one-stop store for residential and commercial floor treatments, carpeting, linoleum, tiles, laminates, hardwood floors, area rugs, remnants, all major brands, all in stock. Free estimates, same-day installation. Consumer Carpets, it's savings, selection, installation. Credit cards and debit cards accepted. Financing available. Consumer Carpets, price to fit your budget, installation to fit your schedule. On the net at consumercarpets.com. Consumer Carpets, Jersey City, 201-792-2712.
Hudson County View, live and uncut. John R. Heinis, and as I mentioned a few moments ago, today I'm with Congressman Rob Menendez of the 8th District. Rob, thanks for coming in.
Great to be with you.
Very good. So obviously, I think the thing that is on most people's minds throughout the country, really, not just here in New Jersey, is what happened at Delaney Hall and the fallout we're still experiencing from that. And then, on top of that, you got that DOJ lawsuit that I talked about, and of course you've heard about. So the latest is, well, you put out a pretty, I think, strongly worded statement about the lawsuit. So let's just talk about that. Where do you think that stands, and where do you think that's going to go?
With respect to the 4 sanctuary cities here?
Yes.
Listen, I think everything that this administration is doing is trying to target New Jersey. I think they want to make politicians fearful of standing up to the Trump administration. I think you saw that at Delaney Hall. You saw that when they arrested Mayor Baraka, which they subsequently dropped, in charging LaMonica MacGyver. And now they're right back in New Jersey suing for Democratic cities, right? So I don't think any of these things are pure consequence or happenstance. I think these are purposeful decisions that the administration is making to play heavy in New Jersey, and why. Okay. We have a gubernatorial this year, right? And so I think they think that by taking these actions against these cities, these elected officials, that they're putting their finger on the scale of what happens in November.
All right, so let's unpack that a little bit. Obviously, President Donald Trump endorsed Jack Ciattarelli about 3 weeks ago or so, and ever since then, you know, we felt the effects of White House in D.C. in Jersey, to your point. Mm-hmm. So, what do you think is going on behind the curtain there? If you had to, you know, put your finer point on it.
There's only 2 gubernatorials this year, right? Here in Virginia. And you have Abigail Spanberger as the Democratic nominee there, and she's going to be really strong in the general election. So what I think you see the administration, specifically Trump, wanting to do is lean in on New Jersey. Jack Ciattarelli performed well 4 years ago against Murphy during his reelection. President Trump, I think, exceeded expectations this November in the margin that he lost to Vice President Harris by. And so there's only two options out there for a big play and a big splash for the Republican Party. And I think they want to use every tool available to them that they have at their disposal to impact what happens in November and try to obviously skew it in the favor of Jack Ciattarelli.
Fair enough. Now, just one more point on Delaney Hall. So, obviously this incident happens, national coverage across the board. And then there was a report, I believe Axios was the first, and they had your picture and they said, there could be further arrests. And then about a week later, LaMonica McIver gets charged. So do you have any concern about fallout from that on the legal aspect, the legal end?
Listen, we're all concerned about LaMonica. I mean, the charges against her are outrageous. I mean, obviously I was there that day, I saw what I saw. And the fact that there hasn't been an apology from DHS to the three of us, and specifically to her and Bonnie, it would be unacceptable in any other time except for the moment that we're in with this administration. So we're all going to support LaMonica as she navigates through this. With respect to Bonnie and I, we're all right with whatever the U.S. Attorney's Office decides to do next. But right now, because LaMonica has been charged, we want to make sure that she has the full support of our delegation here in New Jersey and the Democratic caucus in Washington.
All right, makes
Which
sense.
she does.
Yeah, no, I saw that. I
Yeah.
even saw some Republicans came out in support, which doesn't happen every
Yeah.
day, as you well know.
Retired Republicans said, no, this is not normal, right, to charge a sitting member of Congress for doing their job. And they even try to distort that fact, right, that we were there to conduct oversight. By the way, both Republicans and Democrats do that, right? It is written into law that we have the opportunity and the right, I should say, to conduct oversight visits, both pre-planned and unannounced. So the three of us were there to do our job. As you know, and many viewers know, after this unfortunate situation occurred, we went into Delaney Hall afterwards with ICE officials to do our oversight visit. So we went there to do our job. We had this unfortunate circumstance. We went back in, did our job, and now they want to bring a criminal action against her for doing what she had every right to do there.
All right, so thanks for unpacking that. Now, when we're talking about the governor's race, obviously you've chosen not to endorse, and I assume you're not going to 13 days out, but would you maybe be willing to share who you think is going to win and or who you're voting for?
Listen, I think it's a great field, right? Two colleagues of mine, two mayors from the district. I have a relationship with both Sean and Sweeney from different parts of life and in this work. So I think it's been a really robust campaign. I think the Democratic primary voters here in New Jersey have had a lot of opportunities to explore the different options. There's no hiding that in all public polling, Mikey has been the consistent front runner with the two mayors close behind her. I think there could be any outcome on June 10th, some of which are more likely than others, but in terms of the entire field, I can't say that I'd be surprised with any outcome that happens on June 10th.
Okay, so you're not counting anyone out at this point?
No, not counting anyone out. I mean, I think the person people talk about perhaps the least, Sean Spiller, has spent a lot of money getting his name ID to a really high level, right? So across the state. So that's a potential. If you're third, right, in every different county, who knows how the math adds up? People have different strengths. Steve Sweeney has a real strong presence in South Jersey and has a lot of labor support across the state. Josh is in Bergen, right? So you go through and people have a case to make. That being said, Mikey's been the consistent front runner. She is a very strong candidate. And the two mayors have executive experience, which appeals to people. I think that in the progressive universe, Raz Baraka is the one, right, in terms of his track record in Newark, his consistency on those issues. For the universe of the Democratic primary voter, that skews that way.
Fair enough. All right, Congressman, don't go anywhere. Folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
Panepinto Properties, Jersey City, shaping the workplace with state-of-the-art office spaces and addresses your company desires. Building residences that define your home environment, adjacent to all modes of transportation with on-site parking available. The right address, the right lease. Call 201-521-9000 or visit online at panepintodevelopment.com. Panepinto Properties, building Jersey City for everyone.
Burns Brothers.
Hudson County View live and uncut. John R. Heinis, and I'm still here with U.S. Representative Rob Menendez. So obviously last week we had Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop sitting right in the chair you're sitting in, and we did a long-form interview, nearly a half hour, and a lot was said. I mean, just give me your takeaways or your thoughts.
You know, people know that I've had my disagreements with Steve. I think in watching the interview, it's always the world according to Steve, and Steve's always right. And I think when people look at his track record in Jersey City, there's a lot to take issue with in terms of how he presents himself in this race for governor. I think there was a lot of promises made that haven't been kept to the people of Jersey City. And I think for you and I both as Jersey City residents, when you talk to people who have experienced the last several years in Jersey City, they feel that way, right? They don't have a mayor who is locked into the day-to-day workings of the city. You see that whether you're walking down the street and you see trash receptacles that are filled over, when I take my kids to the park and they're in a state of disrepair, when you go to a construction site and clearly the priority is the builder, not the people. I mean, you drive through Journal Square right now and the quality of life for people is challenging, right? So I think there's a number of things that people here in Jersey City know about his style of leadership that he's misrepresenting to the people of New Jersey who are going to vote in this Democratic primary. And I think it's a shame because, you know, there's a story that he can tell, and then there's the story that he tells, and there's a pretty big gap between those two things.
All right, point taken. Now, talking about the fight on the local level, specifically the sheriff and assembly races, you did end up endorsing at 33, and that's Assemblyman Gabriel Rodriguez and Larry Weinstein, as well as for sheriff, and that's Bayonne Mayor Jimmy Davis, and of course those are the Hudson County Democratic Organization's picks. So why did you decide to get involved in those races and not in 31 or 32?
Well, listen, there's great folks who are supported by the HCDO across the board. You know, for me, when I look at the 33rd and the people who are running against the HCDO candidates, they're just bomb throwers, right? They're here to throw bombs at Brian Stack. They're here to throw bombs at me, right? And that to me is you should
and your
be
dad for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, that's fine, right? But like, I was in Union City the other day for a meeting. You cannot say that there is anyone who works harder for their city or their district than Brian Stack. Now, folks who are running against the two candidates, Gabe and Larry, may not like the fact that they're supported by Brian, but that is the biggest validation that you can have, not just in Hudson, but in the state of New Jersey, is to have Brian Stack support, not because of the GOTV operation, but because in terms of the elected officials that I've seen in my time in office and before then, there is no one like Brian Stack, right? And so having his support really is important because it's a sign that these are the people that will do the work in a way that puts constituents and the people first. You juxtapose that to a bunch of bomb throwers, and it should be a very easy decision for everyone in the 33rd.
All right, and when you mentioned the challengers, I mean, they're, you know, have made a lot of contentions, as you just highlighted, but they're basically saying that the way Brian runs government is not the way government's supposed to be run, getting tens, hundreds of millions from the state government and balancing your budget, both at the municipal and Board of Ed level, and a lot of other things that we don't have time for. But do you think there's any merit to anything they say?
The argument that Brian's too good at his job, is that what we're saying, right? Like, Kobe was too good at basketball, like we should replace him on the Lakers. Jordan was too good for the Bulls, we should replace him, right? Like, that is insane in my opinion, right? Like I said earlier, Brian works harder than anyone else in elective office, right? Anyone who's a public servant, right? The results speak for themselves. You go to any school in Union City, it's state of the art, right? You walk down any block. I was driving down Summit, right? trees are planted along every single street. Like the things that we talk about that a lot of these other people who run for public office in places like Jersey City and Hoboken, that they talk about, Brian actually does. Brian actually delivers. So I always think there's the people who are perhaps envious of someone's success and their ability to deliver. My opinion is Brian is an incredible leader, an incredible public servant, and the results speak for themselves.
And why support Mayor Davis for sheriff?
So listen, the mayor and I have had a long relationship. I've seen what he's done in Bayonne as the mayor. I was just there for the Memorial Day parade. As you know, he has a long experience in law enforcement. That's what that's a background he brought to being mayor, and I've seen how successful it's been there for him. And he has a lot of support from within the sheriff's department, right, for his election. I've had a long relationship with Sheriff Sholari. I do consider him a partner in a lot of what we've been able to do. But in this election, when we think about how we move everything forward, I think Jimmy is the right person for the job.
Time for new blood.
I'm always cautious to say time for new blood, right? But in terms of how you can improve anything, I think you have to think about forward-thinking leadership, and I think right now in this moment, Jimmy has that.
So Sheriff Sholari, just real quick, obviously he's made it a focal point of his campaign. You know, Davis was accused of sexting, and there was a sexual harassment case, and then there's another gender discrimination case. This is not a guy that's an executive that is fit to lead. What do you think of that?
Well, the people of Bayonne disagree with that statement, right? And a lot of these things, not that they shouldn't be scrutinized and all of that, right? Everything that we do should be. But the people of Bayonne who know Jimmy the best, right, have reelected him, right, and have shown that his leadership of the city is what they're going to make their decision on when they go to vote. So these issues have been brought up in the past. They'll obviously be raised to the same level the next couple of weeks. But I always say the people that know someone best, right, whether they support them or not, people of Bayonne have consistently supported Jimmy. He has a tremendous amount of support in Bayonne because he's gotten things done for Bayonne.
Congressman, thank you so much.
Hey, great seeing you.
Always a pleasure. Great to see you too. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, Jersey City. Hudson County's only monument maker, serving all faiths and cemeteries. Design, studio, and large inventory on site. Cemetery inscriptions and custom orders welcome. Burns Brothers Memorials, Monuments, and Markers, 787 Tunley Avenue, just south of Secaucus Road. Craftsmanship that will last for all eternity. Burns Brothers, Jersey City, Albert H. Hopper, North Arlington. Visit us on the net.
Newport, the luxury waterfront community on the Hudson River, offers a quality of life you deserve in one of our many high-rise towers. With amenities such as the on-site Newport Path, light rail, Newport Town Square, 3 playgrounds, dog run, upscale restaurants, retail giants like Kohl's, JCPenney, Macy's, and Target. Morton Williams and Acme Supermarket are just outside your front door. A health and fitness center, skating rink, and medical facilities are also on site. Enjoy the New York skyline from our waterfront and various parks. Manhattan is just one pass stop away, or quick ride through the Holland Tunnel. Nursery and private elementary schools all on site. 12-screen movie theater at the Newport Center Mall. Looking to visit? Stay at the Westin or Marriott Hotel. For more information, visit us at newportnj.com. Make lasting memories to cherish forever. It's incredible. It's you, Newport. Live like you want.
Hudson County View live and uncut, John R. Heinis. So just a couple more. So I mentioned also that U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill, she had an editorial about the Gateway Tunnel. Quick excerpt here. Donald Trump spent his entire first administration punishing states like New Jersey. Now he's working every day to pull back federal funding from some of our most important programs. We know that Jack Ciattarelli won't fight for this project. In fact, he voted against the funding used to replace the Poodle Bridge, a critical choke point of the Northeast Corridor and a key component of the overall Gateway program. Not on my watch. Governor, I would use all of New Jersey's leverage to ensure that we are getting every cent needed to complete the Hudson River Tunnel. So with that, back to Mayor Fulop, is still talking about the governor's race. And there was a Canademics Cannabis Convention at the American Dream Mall on Sunday, and he was one of the speakers. And you notice the picture there was kind of a funny one. You see him holding a hemp plant. But anyway, the point of the matter is he endorsed medical mushrooms for veterans as well as home grow, which obviously are currently both not allowed in New Jersey. So, there's really not too much more to say about that. It's self-explanatory. However, I think it's worth mentioning that a dispensary owner, and that's Chris Broderick of Legacy to Lifted, he asked during the Q&A if he ever inhaled, and he said yes with a chuckle. So I think it's worth mentioning that too. And he also asked about home grow and what sort of methodology would be best, I guess is the word here. And the gentleman Josh Alb of Canademics said that in California they allow 6 to 8 plants to be grown. And Fulop asked what the holdup in New Jersey was, and they said Curaleaf. And he said, "I'll help you out with that. You've got my word on that." So something for cannabis enthusiasts to look forward to under a Fulop governorship. So let's move on. Obviously, there's a lot of other things happening. So real quick, actually, this one's quite self-explanatory, if I say so myself. Passaic County Sheriff Thomas Adamo endorsed Mayor Jimmy Davis for sheriff. He's the third sheriff from New Jersey to endorse Davis, and the other two are Essex County Sheriff Amir Jones, and then we also have from Somerset County, that is Darren Russo. So interesting. Obviously, sheriffs from outside the county typically don't endorse, but that's what's happening here. So kind of an explosive story, if I say so myself, from yesterday on the 33rd Legislative District. Tony Hector and Frank Alonzo paid $10,000 on May 6th to Truth Investigations. Of course, that's the Connecticut-based business of Leroy Truth, whose real name is Leonard Filipowski. And, if you thought the blood feud between State Senator and Union City Mayor Brian Stack and North Bergen Mayor Nick Sacco was cooking, well, you haven't seen anything yet. So we heard from Stack, and he said, the Sacco political machine has always been about helping themselves and hurting people, but we will not be deterred. In fact, the recent confirmation by ELEC only motivates me to work harder with the aim of expelling Sacco and his cronies from government. Quite a strong statement. And, we heard from Joe Blaitler, the campaign chair for the Hector and Alonzo campaign, and he said we knew this would get under Brian's skin, that's why we did it. Leroy Truth has more credibility than the NJ Globe. Leroy Truth never pled guilty to shutting down the George Washington Bridge. This is after he made the allegation that the NJ Globe accepted an advertisement from them, signed the contract, and then ended up not running it. So folks, that's all the time we got for today. We'll catch you next time. See you next week.